Daddy, we're doing.
I'm doing a podcast, Dizzy. Hello and welcome to the Too Cool for School podcast. I'm your host Yannick, and on today's episode we are having a discussion around private and public schooling. So I've got an amazing guest with me today, and I'll allow her to introduce herself.
My name is Katrina, and I'm a part of an organisation called Global Scholars International. And what we do is we just provide consultation for parents that want to send their kids to private schools, or they're deciding whether or not private or state, and we provide that consultation. We also give career advice as well for university students, for university hopeful students, to see where they want to go to university.
Okay, great stuff. So what made you want to sort of get into that line of work, Katrina?
Do you know, I've had a lot of experience working in the state sector and the private sector, and I'm interested to see, why are some of the outcomes different? And are the outcomes actually different for students? Or is it sort of like a facade that we have that, we send your kid to private school, are they automatically better off in life? I'm a mother of two, so I want to know, is it something that we should work towards, or is it something that actually, no, it's not worth it? So it's very personal to me. Yeah. And then from a professional point of view, I've worked in both sectors. So I want to see what the strategies that private schools employ that make it better, and vice versa with state schools. So both professional and personal is where the interest comes from.
That's interesting. And when, in terms of your consultancy, is it more supporting students from like international, so overseas, coming to private schools here, rather than students here looking at private schooling abroad?
It's international, so usually it's students that have a parent that's British. Mm-hmm. A lot of them are sort of diplomat children. They've been going around the world, following a parent for work, and they're looking at, they were looking at settling in the UK, but they don't know which path to go down. So it's usually those international students, or they're British, but they've just been well-travelled all over the world, and they really need that consultation. But I think that it's beneficial for all parents who are considering it. It's actually a majority of parents, particularly black parents, that want to send their kids to private school in the UK, don't have any consultation. So they just sort of think, I want my kid to go to that private school, and then they just put them in if they can afford it, obviously, but there's no real discussion as to whether or not it's worth their while. It's a massive financial commitment. Is it worth it? So it's beneficial to everybody, not just for international students, but a majority are international.
And what sort of questions are parents asking, like when you're in the consultation process? What are parents asking in particular about the school? What trends, what insights are key that you need to be aware of, so you're sharing those details with parents?
Most parents, first of all, want to know about the money, how much it is. They want to know about any scholarships, bursary programs that are available as well. They also want to know about extracurricular courses. If it's for secondary and sixth form, then they want to understand, what pathway the child should take to study a particular degree at university, and whether or not a particular private school is quite successful of getting them there. They want to be very specific with regards to Oxbridge. How many students in a particular private school have ended up at a Russell Group or Oxbridge University? They want to find out about boarding schools as well, teacher quality too. So it really is a wide range, and it really depends on the needs of the parents. I mean, if you're a parent that's grown up in China and your child has special needs, then you're going to want to have a private school that provides that, and so they want that research. So before the consultation, we do all the research, holistic research, and we also look at a lot of data with regards to outcomes. So that's what we really focus on.
And is that data and information like publicly available? Like, how do you gather those insights?
That's a good question.
Sharing your sort of trade secret?
Some of them are, and some of them are harder to get. It is out there, but let's say if you put it into ChatGPT, it won't give you the major details of it. So, for example, the details that they want to know specifically about the exam board data is not produced. Is only produced a year later. So if you want the most up-to-date knowledge, then you'll need to come to teaching professionals that have a login so that you can get in for it. And I think that a lot of them just like talking to people, somebody in the field that has the information readily available. And then they can ask questions, we can feed back to them, and so on and so forth. So, yeah.
And you mentioned examples, and this could be a completely silly question to ask, but do private schools use the same, like
They do.
OCR, AQA?
Absolutely.
Okay, so there's no difference.
No.
Like the same GCSEs that you're sitting in a state school, private school, you're doing the same thing.
Absolutely. There is slight variation with regards to which subjects they offer.
Okay.
So maybe in private schools they're more likely to offer things like classics.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. However, you can get it in the state school, just that there's not a lot of uptake for it, so they don't provide it. But it's the same. Yeah.
and through your consultation, through your research, have you been able to develop relationships with either Russell Group, universities, private schools,
That's right.
etc.? How have you been able to do that, and how have you sustained those relationships?
So that's what they really want to find out about, how many students ended up in, as I said before, Uxbridge or Russell Group University. So we have people that are in the admissions team in specific departments that are really popular. So usually it's economics, history, philosophy, mathematics, and they want to know how they're going to get in, how my child's going to get in. We have those contacts already established for the top universities in the UK. And then we do all the legwork. And we may have a student that has studied an international qualification in America. Do you accept that information? Do you accept this qualification, for example? What does this student need to be able to gain entry? We provide as bespoke package, if you like. We'll say, well, this is specifically what they need. We've spoken to the admissions office, we've given the name, they are aware of you, and this is exactly what you need. So there's no sort of grey area. This is what you need to get in. Yeah. And that's what they like. Yeah.
That's very interesting. So I don't know anyone that's personally that's been to a private school.
Okay, yeah.
And my knowledge and understanding of private school would just be things that I've either read on the news, online, social media, assumptions, etc. What are the biggest sort of misconceptions do you think people have of private schools, and what are private schools, really like, essentially, based on your experience?
I think one of the biggest misconceptions is that everybody that sends their kids to private school is super wealthy, and that is just not the case. Of course, there are very expensive fees, but remember there are also programs that lower the cost of fees as well. If you have a particularly talented child, you can apply for a scholarship depending on the private school that you apply for. If they're very good at a particular instrument, for example, or extracurricular activity, they can apply for a scholarship through that as well. There are bursaries available. I know I have a close friend who her mum was helping a really rich guy out with regards to, because his partner was sick, and then he sort of adopted her kids, and he pays the fees. She's not wealthy, actually, on the contrary, but she has this unique opportunity. And I think you also have people who are there because their parents are scrimping and saving everything just to give their children this opportunity. They're choosing to spend their money on that. It doesn't mean that they're super wealthy. So I think that's the most common misconception, that everybody there is posh and everybody has loads of money. That's not the case.
And what's the what are some of the similarities between like private and state schools? Because people think private schools are just this Hogwarts type thing that you can't access. But what are some of the things that having experienced both, you can say actually private schools and state schools, like, you guys do the same things in these areas?
I think firstly, they all offer the same curriculum, because in the UK we have standardised national curriculum. So there's no subjects that are different. Everybody sits the same GCSEs and the same A-level examinations, and they're all tested externally by, as you said, Edexcel, OCR, AQA, and so on and so forth. So I think that's the first thing. The second thing, some people will disagree with me, but I think teacher quality is largely the same. Private schools, all teachers in the UK mostly have a PGCE, a teaching qualification, a bachelor degree, and maybe a master's degree. You have a QTS qualification or QTLS. Those are things that are across the board with regards to teachers. Walking into a state lesson and a private lesson, they're following almost the same lesson plan. Starter activity, learning objectives and aims, the sort of main body, loads of scaffolding, differentiation, for instance, tailoring learning. That's all there in private school and state school. And I think that those are the major similarities for people to understand that your child is not getting a different course. That course is the same. Teacher quality, teachers transition from state and private, so therefore the teacher quality is largely the same, and then the actual lessons themselves are the same in terms of the structure.
So,
Yeah.
so then what is it about these establishments that sort of get students over the line and give them, access and opportunities that a student from state school wouldn't necessarily have, apart from the obvious fees? Like, what is it that really makes the difference?
The most significant difference is that private schools offer excellent hidden curriculum activities. What I mean by hidden curriculum is that they train their students to have advanced soft skills. And these are skills like public speaking, for instance, etiquette, corporate level communication at a very young age. They give them this confident, we call it a confident entitlement, where they feel comfortable in elite places. And that's what they're training them to do. So the second you walk into that private school, they are increasing their confidence. They're saying to them, you can do anything, Yeah. It's not about, oh, I can't. No, it's about you can. So those advanced soft skills are what leaders use today. That's where the leaders get them from. They plant those seeds and they water them the time that they're there. And I think that they do that incredibly well. So when you see people, let's say, lead any type of leader in the UK in sort of a prestigious career, yeah, most of the time they are private schooled. But I think it's mainly because of this hidden curriculum, those soft skills that they're given them, ability to articulate yourself very clearly, to have positive mannerisms, the elocution, for instance, that you just don't get in state schools. So I think that that's really what pushes them over the line. So looking over the data, sort of, if you look at banking in particular, mid-level, associate level, for banking, a lot of people are from comprehensive schools. But then when you get to sort of senior exec, that's where the gap gets really apparent. And I don't think there are people would say there's lots of different reasons, it could be discrimination or so on and so forth. But I think that it's because of those soft skills. I remember I had an interview and my boss was sitting next to me and there were two candidates that had the almost exact same CV. Everything was the same, just the name was different. The schooling was different, but he didn't even look at the school. And when we were talking about it, he said, I'm going to go for that guy because he has stature. What is that? I was like, what? But that's what he's saying, those advanced soft skills. That person came across very well, confident, sure of himself. And that's why he got that senior position. Whereas the other person got offered the job, but it was a lower position. And I think this, again, it's because he was taught that confidence within private school. So that's what they do really well. And I think if anybody's considering it, that's really what you're paying for. And to answer your question again, the second thing you're paying for is networking. So private school have very high profile alumni. Their students are former prime ministers.
Yeah.
Top neurosurgeons, You know, they have guest speakers that come in that are sort of related, you know, that are working directly under the Chancellor. So that high profile alumni means that students get used to being around those sort of people in those sort of environments. And then they have events with these people, they have dinners with these people. So they become very confident. Whereas if you're somebody who's gone to a comprehensive school, the chances are largely that you're not put in those circles. So to be in those circles later, it gets complex. You have to learn those skills as you go along, whereas they've already learned it. So unfortunately, that's really the biggest difference, I think, with state and private schools.
So when you have schools like Brampton Manor,
Yeah,
when you have schools like Mossbourne in Hackney, who
Very good.
are disrupting the status quo,
yeah.
essentially, like for you, what does that say about the whole debate of
Yeah.
private versus state schooling and being able to have access to the Oxbridge and the Russell Group universities,
Yeah.
and really allowing these students to get to the upper echelon, academically and within society.
Precisely. I think it's great. I always get so excited when I see their results posted online because I think that there are excellent students within a comprehensive school environment, and it's wonderful to see that. I think with the Brampton Manors, and as you mentioned, they do what state schools do that I think is very good, such as it prepares students for immediate challenges. It prepares students well to pass examinations. And I think that there are a lot of high achieving comprehensive schools that do that. So it disrupts it in that point of view. And actually that's really good, because I was looking at the data pertaining to Uxbridge, and both Oxford and Cambridge have a majority of students for the admissions coming from comprehensive schools, coming from state schools. Yeah. So one data in particular, 2020 for Cambridge, they had only admitted about just under 4,000 students. It's on their website. And out of those 4,000 students, 2,500 came from comprehensive schools or state schools. So comprehensive, there's loads of different ones, yeah? So state schools in particular. And then there's quite a large proportion that come from grammar schools. And then looking at Cambridge, Oxford, similar thing as well, a bit lower than Cambridge, but it's similar. So about in 2024, it was about 1,700 came from state schools, state funding schools. Yeah, that's very positive. What that tells us is that your kid can go to comprehensive school or a grammar school and still gain admission. And that's why I say to parents, why do you want them to go to private school? You have to know why. Because if it's to get good grades, you can get that within a comprehensive environment. Is it worth about £18,000 a year? Yeah. That's one child. And that's excluding school trips, school uniform. The numbers just keep going up. So I always say that, just as a sort of caveat. So
And do you think, like with certain public schools or state schools, instead of like preparing students for success, is more just preparing them for survival? You know what? Let's just get them to the finish line, man. Let's just get them to GCSE to do their last exam, and then, we've kept them safe.
Yeah, exactly. We've done the job, yeah. Remember, private schools have 3 times more funding per pupil than state schools. So, yeah, of course, it's going to be like, look, I just want you to get a better grade so that, that will help you in life as well. So it's no sort of, they're not doing a bad job, they're doing an excellent job. In state schools, you're more likely to have teachers that will go beyond for their kids. I'm sure so many people can say, oh, this teacher at school, did this for me, or, took the extra time. You find that within a state school. So, yeah, as I said before, it prepares students for the immediate challenges like passing examinations. Yes, it does prepare you to survive. And it does prepare you for academic success, but I think that holistic development of the child is something that they just can't offer across the board because of that funding. Yeah. That is just unavailable.
I wanted to to know, and I'm not sure whether this is something that you would have come across in your research or from your experience. What is the demographic makeup like within private school?
So, there is no specific data that tells us black people alone, first of all, but they just put ethnic minorities all together. Yeah.
Okay.
And it's about 40 to 42% ethnic minorities within that go to private schools in the UK.
Okay, and that could be
Non-white. They refer
Yeah.
to it as non-white.
yeah,
Yeah.
that is very broad and very vague.
Very vague. Yeah.
So if we think about that demographic, then the non-whites,
Yeah.
do you feel that they are still able to benefit from the same sort of experiences that their white counterparts are benefiting from, irrespective of race? Because I'm thinking now, actually, having asked that question, I'm not sure who it was. Was it Nigel Farage I was seeing a few months ago, and someone who went to university with him, he's an older guy now, black gentleman,
Okay.
and he was basically saying, like, you made my life hell, like, during,
Yeah.
like, private school. Like, you was not, a nice person. You was a bully, a racist, etc.
Oh.
I think it was Nigel Farage.
Yeah.
If it wasn't, apologies, but it was
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah. Oh, that's upsetting. That's really upsetting.
But do you think they have the same sort of experience and benefits
as
their
their white counterparts? Remember, private schools are profit driven.
Yeah. Mhm.
Money doesn't have a colour.
Yeah.
You're paying for it. However, there's bullying, of course, in private schools, and some people argue that bullying is really bad in some private schools, and when you got it bad there, it's really bad for students. But with regards to just the teachers and the establishment, I think that's a school to school thing. I can't really talk about all schools, but on the whole, from the students that I've seen within my organisation, yeah, it's largely the same. It's largely the same. The only difference is I think what matters more is the family structure. Where there is family stability, it does wonders for the education system. Majority of the students within private schools have, quite strong family units. Yes, some of them have, come up in single parent households, but it's sort of, it's the sort of the minority as opposed to the majority. That's not to say that some of them have dysfunctional upbringing. Of course, it's not across the board, but on the whole, it's usually a two-parent household, lots of stability. And what's more is their parents are professionals. So they're having that experience at home, and then the school is building on that.
Yeah.
One thing about state schools is I think that they are starting from scratch with the child, whereas private schools, children are not. They already come from households that are aware of what you need to succeed in a particular sector. Let's say for people like us, whose parents have come from somewhere else, they're like, go to school, read your book. And that's do you understand?
Yeah.
Whereas they already know, you invest in this when you're younger. Yeah. Oh, let's go to China for a holiday and let's go and see so-and-so and think about how that's already there for them. So I think that advantage is there already. But let's say for our children, they will have that advantage. Yeah.
And again, reflecting on the non-whites and the ethnic minorities, especially those within private school settings, do you feel that they need to, or they feel the pressure to essentially code switch?
Yeah.
They see themselves in that environment where they're saying, you know what, like, we know we don't belong here. We either need to conform or we need to adhere to whatever the status quo is there to fit in. Do you think that there is pressure to do that?
That's a really good question. I'm just thinking about my experience and the students that I've met, but also the adults that I've known go to private school or have been to private school. This one guy, he went to the most prestigious school in the UK, black guy. No, he just he was entirely himself.
Yeah.
And that confidence from the private school just and landed on him. So he was entirely himself, always, never code switch. He was who he was at a particular time. I mean, everybody has to adapt sometime, I guess. There are other people that say, you know, actually, I feel a certain way when I go and I behave a certain way when I go in. On the whole, I don't think I can really say on the whole, yes, they have to code switch, because really, in my experience, I've seen both. I've seen the code switchers. I've seen the absolutely no code switching. I mean, the guy that doesn't code switch said, "My dad paid so much money to be here. How can I be fake?" you know. So he was like, "I'm paying the same amount of fees. You know, I can't. You know, I have to be who I am. You know." So, and at the same time, I've got, you know, family members that go to private school, and yeah, they're a bit timid and they're like, "Oh, you know, I'm just trying to fit in. I'm just trying to be like everyone else." So it just. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's more on an individual basis, you know.
And what is the... Because I don't have 18,000 a year to spend. What is the most prestigious schools in the UK?
We've heard of Eton, right?
Yeah.
So Etonians, as they call them, I'd say, you know, highly successful. Multiple prime ministers have gone there. You've got Dulwich College, for instance.
Oh yeah, I know Dulwich College.
Yeah. And then you've got other schools, other private schools that are outside of London, like Hall School, in Braintree area, I believe. You've got other schools in Essex, like Brentwood, for example. They're private education. I mean, all of them are very good. They're very good. But remember, they are dealing with a cohort that doesn't have as many challenges as a comprehensive school. So I would expect that they are very good.
So in reality,
yeah.
Let's say I magically had, I don't even know how much it is to go Eton.
Okay.
And Eton goes up to sixth form, yeah?
Yeah.
Let's say I magically send my son to Eton. He does his time there, sixth form. If he applies for a university and they see Eton,
okay,
is he getting in just without them even reading the personal statement?
No.
Like, there needs to be substance. Like, he
of
needs
course.
to have the grades. That there needs to be something
of
in
course.
the personal statement.
Yeah.
Even at recruitment level, like if he finishes
for university, recruitment level, that's different.
Why is it different?
That is different. Okay. Firstly, universities, they need better students to make sure that they can stay on top of the university ranking tables. If you're taking below par students, how is the integrity of a university going to continue? Yes, you may have spent loads and loads of money on your education, but you're not very good at it. So, you know, recruitment, however, that's a totally different ball game. I think, you know, as human beings, it's natural to be like, oh yeah, that person went to the same school as me, or so and so.
Okay.
So if you're a senior exec and you see a fellow Tony, you're like, oh, you're a Eton, I know how. This is what it is. It's network relationships. So that's entirely different. I know some people that got third-class degrees, but went to Cambridge and got employed in like really quite good jobs.
So I should just
or they went to somebody
and failed.
Well, it's a lot of money to fail, but I mean, it's all. I think a lot of it is relative, but I think what the data tells us is that you don't have to go into private school is not a guarantee that you're going to get into Oxbridge. Especially mentioning the sixth forms, the schools that you've mentioned, is not a guarantee anymore. So what is it? What is the guarantee? And as I said before, I think it's that hidden curriculum that is so important for employers in particular, and for your child, you know, in the future. The fact that they are confident, they can speak well, you know, is what is better, I think.
So for you, what do you think, like, out of all the areas that you've mentioned, hidden curriculum, network, the access, the education quality, what stands out? Like, what is at the top? What benefits the students the most?
From a private school?
Yeah.
Hidden curriculum.
Okay.
Hidden curriculum, and remember, private schools are longer than state schools. So they have more contact time with their teachers.
What do you mean longer?
Longer hours. The school day is longer because, remember, you can have boarding schools as well. And typically, you know, they go a bit longer throughout the day. It depends on the private school, but on average, they're slightly longer. So more contact time. Remember, you have smaller class sizes as well. It's incredibly important. At the private school I was at, I had 9 kids. Just 9. Can you imagine?
Well,
in the class?
what key stage was that?
That was A-level.
Oh.
So just 9. And sometimes I had 5. So what could you do as a teacher with 5 kids?
Yeah.
You can do so much with 5 kids. You can guarantee them almost to get top grades. You're giving them individualised learning. I could actually produce individualised learning plans for all 5 of them. Wherever they were, I would produce a lesson according to that.
Wow.
So the small class sizes make a difference. If your child is somebody that gets a bit nervous in a full class setting, or they get distracted easy, then obviously a small class would be a lot better. But this is not, I mean, we haven't spoken about SEN, students with additional needs. There are some private schools that just simply will not admit students that have additional needs. They say, look, they just don't have the capacity to deal with it. So I think I find that quite a difficult pill to swallow.
Even if like the child has EHCP, you know how with like state schools they go through like fair access panels and they can go through appeal, etc.
Yeah.
Like, what is that process with private schools?
It's different entirely. I mean, if they don't have that department, they can't offer it. They
what
can't.
Department? Like a SEN department?
Yeah. Even some private schools would ask the parents to pay for an additional TA if they need it.
Wow.
On top of the fees. Can you imagine?
What, some private schools wouldn't have an SEN department?
No. I mean, it'll be somewhat. I mean, for some of them, I know, I'm not going to mention schools. I know one school who say, no, they can't admit somebody with additional needs.
But what type of additional needs? If they've got like EHCP or even like SEMH needs?
Both. This private school just flat out said no. You know, I don't know if it's because, I mean, the child in particular, you know, they say, a lot of schools actually say, I need to be potty trained, I need to be so and so forth before they come. And because the child wasn't, they were almost there, but they wasn't. They just said, no, you know, we can't do it. And also they made it very clear that ongoing support for this child is not what they can provide. For me, that tells me that you just don't want to spend the budget on it. Or you don't have enough students that are coming to spend the budget on it. So, yeah. Not like in the state school, you have to make reasonable adjustments and so on and so forth. But they can say, look, they just don't have the provision and they can't do it.
So, in terms of like the structure then within like private schools, you have like your, like head teachers, SLT?
Yeah.
Like, do they have like pastoral teams? But
absolutely.
It's just around SEND and additional needs.
Yeah, if they can provide that care. But that's one thing that I think state schools do very well, is they have SEN, they've got good pastoral care, things like safeguarding are above par.
Are there any private schools that specialise in SEND?
They are, but it's very expensive. They are, but they don't tend to be a part of the big private school organisations. So remember, private schools are not just your typical Etons and so on and so forth. You can have private schools that follow a particular teaching strategy, let's say Montessori, for example, or you've got religious schools. Like you've got a lot of Christian private schools that are popping up nowadays. So those schools in particular cater to particular needs. So the same would go with that as well, would be one that caters to that need. Yeah. So not all private schools, if you hear someone say, oh, they're private educated, it doesn't mean that they're going to, you know, they're super expensive ones. Actually, a number of the Christian private schools that I've worked with try their best to reduce fees as much as possible, so that trying to make it possible, accessible for everyone to go to.
So, in terms of like entry requirements into schools, apart from just being able to pay fees, like do the kids have to do like a test? Do the family have to meet a criteria? Do they have to live locally, or is it enough to just, I've got 18k, like send me your bank details?
Do not have to live locally to go to a private school. Absolutely not. Some private schools are selective, some private schools are not. Some private schools require to have a certain amount of money in your bank account. Yeah. So they can make sure it's like affordability testing to make sure that you can actually afford the fees. Yeah. So those are steps that they take to make sure that to try and make sure that students don't come and then are withdrawn because they can't pay fees, which is very heartbreaking when this child
is. That very common?
I'll say in my time working, I've seen about 5 kids that had to be withdrawn because of non-payment of fees.
Oh,
it's really disruptive for them. Some of them don't pay the fees, and then they pay the fees like a month after they've been taken out of school. So imagine they've lost a month of learning. And this is what I'm saying. It really is a financial strain. It affects marriages, affects families, produces anxiety. The kids absorb that anxiety. So it's a major commitment if you're thinking about it and you're not sort of the like multi-millionaire, got like £100,000 cash, just sitting in, which is most of us, isn't it? So
yeah. So just back on that, I did check on Google and it was Nigel Farage.
Oh,
I don't
okay.
want to name drop,
Yeah.
Someone and it's not that person.
Good.
But on the back of that is interesting because I could have sworn that I've read somewhere that there was a private school that was shutting down because they just couldn't keep up with the fees. Like it's getting too
a lot
expensive.
of private
so
schools.
Even the middle class, rich, or
precisely,
however you want. They're
yes.
just like, yo, listen,
it's too much.
The economy's tight.
It's tight.
Yeah.
I mean, private schools are closing down or merging. It's usually the smaller private schools that are closing down and they're merging together. There's been a VAT hike. That means that the Labour government has essentially increased private school fees by 20%.
Yeah.
That shuts out a lot of middle class individuals. It's just too much money to pay regularly. And that's why they're closing down. A number of now what we've seen is that applications for grammar schools have gone through the roof because kids that were in private school, after the VAT hike, they said, look, we just can't afford to continue to go to secondary school, private school. Let's go to a grammar school instead. So high number of applications from that point of view. And I think that what we'll see is that a lot of families will start moving to more desirable areas just so that they don't have to pay for the fees. Because obviously you're in a catchment for a better comprehensive school, super competitive comprehensive school. You just pay more in the house, but at least you don't have to pay those exorbitant fees for how long. Yeah.
So for the parents that are listening, that are like, you know what, Kat, like, I was already stressing about schools and now you've come and you've fried my brain even more. Like, how would you, or what would you recommend as their approach in terms of, figuring out whether to send their child to private, state, comprehensive, grammar, etc.? And does the approach need to be different depending on whether it's primary or secondary?
Okay, that's a good question. I think, firstly, outcomes. Actually, before outcomes, what do you want your child to get out of education? Think about that. Do you want the school to be responsible for holistic development? Or do you want them to, make sure that they are challenging them academically, so their mind? Think about outcomes. What type of experience do you want them to have in school? And then look at the outcomes of private and state schools. So, as I said before, with regards to Uxbridge, you've got a huge number of kids that are going to Uxbridge that are not privately educated. You've got, in terms of grammar school entry, in Kent alone, only about 10% of grammar school entrants are from private schools. Only 10%. So 90% are from non-fee paying primary schools.
Wow.
So do the 11 plus exams, prepare your child for that, and you can get into a selective grammar school which will take them to where they need to be in the future. So I think, consider that first of all. And private schools can offer things that parents, find valuable, and I think you can. I think the extracurricular activities are excellent. They really are. If you can afford it, obviously. So I'd say if you want your child to have the experience, you want the small class sizes, for instance, you want the extracurricular activities, you want that hidden curriculum too, then private school might be for you.
Yeah.
But if it's out of your reach, because of affordability, then think about what you can do as a parent. There are elocution schools that you can take your kids to after school. They will do public speaking, joining theatre groups. Theatre groups are excellent for public speaking and developing confidence on the stage. So though, when people think about tuition, they just think about maths, English and science. But you can have holistic tuition, they call it, where it's you're developing your child's skills in different ways that's beneficial for them to be successful in the future. Yeah. You can actually take them to alumni events, which a lot of parents don't do. I can understand why. But there was for example, there was an alumni event where we got to meet an astronaut, and the astronaut got to speak to the kids and say, you have to find out about these things. So I think if you're deciding about it, think about the financial commitment. Everybody spends their money on what you want to spend it on. I think everybody's entitled to. If you want to spend it on fees, spend it on fees. If you want to spend it on something, fine. But think about that realistically, because I think pulling your child out, especially at secondary level, it's quite traumatic from what I've seen. Some kids don't mind, but from the ones that I've seen, it's been quite difficult to integrate a bit later down the line. So make sure that you can actually commit to it. And then your other question was primary. Yeah. I think, and this is controversial, I mean, loads of people disagree with me, but I think actually if you're going to spend on private school, you should do it at secondary level. Because primary education, I think in the UK, on the whole, if you are in a good area, is of a very good standard. And actually the outcomes of primary school, as you can see, you can still get to those grammar schools if you go to a state primary school. So that's what I think. And the other things I think you can get from your home life. I think your home life is more important. They're at school for a certain amount of time and then they're at home, and those skills and that attitude and behaviour is what they're learning from their mum and dad.
Yeah. No, that's important.
That's important. Absolutely. I think that's more important actually.
And with the extracurricular activities, I totally agree with that. I recall many moons ago when I was working for a charity called NCS, and we used to deliver like a summer program called The Challenge, where we would get students from school to do like community activities. They'll spend like a week going to a university, living there, residential, and all of those things. And I recall actually going to Dulwich College to do a presentation to the Year 11 boys about the programme. The same with James Allen Girls, which was round the corner. And so many of the boys loved the presentation, but it was like, do you know, we can't do it. I'm going skiing, I'm doing China, and I'm thinking, damn, like this is your summer. I don't even want to go on this programme now. And I'm meant to be one of the, like the youth leaders. And I'm just thinking, like,
that's it.
So jam-packed with like so many, of these opportunities. And the ones who did do it were the parents who said to the kids, I want you to have experience of working and engaging with people that are not from your community and from your background. Because and I remember a child saying this, because I think the dad must have said, because when you're older and like you're running businesses and whatever else, like you're gonna have to need like people skills and whatever. So the dad was basically saying, you go, know how to manage them, because you're gonna be managing them.
Precisely. This is it.
So
different mentality.
That's so
different
interesting.
mentality.
But the opportunities and the access were.
This is it. I've had students that have gotten off a plane the day before from travelling alone to places like Russia, China. It's normal for them. They're very independent. And that's what I'm saying. Their family background is already preparing them for it. Do you see what I mean? So it's hard for comprehensive kids to compete, but you can. be very intentional about how you spend your time, especially as parents, how we spend our time with our kids, and what we're instilling with them.
And like, how is boarding school different to like the private school setup?
Okay.
I'm assuming is it just the fact that it's residential and you stay over, that's the only difference? Or
Boarding schools vary. Some of them you stay over. It's just about staying over. Others is an extension of learning. So that's why they have scope to instill these values within them, because they're living there. So it can be very regimented. Especially, the place that I used to work was a boarding school. Kids had to be out of their room by 8 o'clock sharp, and they couldn't go back to their room until 4:30 in the afternoon. So the assumption was that they were always studying between 8 and 4:30. You couldn't go back to your room to relax. When you did go back to your room to relax, if it was 4:30, you had to be out again by 6, because they had different activities going on that you had to sign up for. So discipline is very important in private school, and you can understand why. Because you're looking after people's kids in boarding school, everyone needs to toe the line. It's a great experience. I know so many people who have loved boarding school, but at the same time, I've had so many students that have actually been really lonely and they've really missed their parents, and some of them stay in the holidays.
Wow.
Which is really heartbreaking.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you see, like some of the issues that we hear about, like workload management, burnout, teacher retention, etc. Is that the same like within the private school sector?
Not exactly. Private schools can be organised in a variety of different ways. So, for example, in the state sector, if you are employed as a teacher, you have to be in. And what time do you guys have to be in the morning?
I don't work in a school anymore.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Yeah.
I think when I was in state school, state sixth form, we had to be there at 8 o'clock in the morning, and then obviously you couldn't leave until 4:30. Lessons finished at 4:15. Whereas, and you're there for the entire day, so you've got lunch there, you've got breaks there, and so on and so forth. Whereas in the private sector, you can have some private sixth forms where you only come in for the lessons you teach. So you may have a lesson at 9 to 11. You come in just before 9 and you can leave just after 11, you know?
Yeah. Wow.
It can be very flexible in terms of what they're offering, online lessons, it depends on the private school.
Yeah.
So burnout is very different depending on it. But if it's the same structure as state, then it can be the same. However, remember, private schools have more resources, so they can actually, delegate. So let's say in the private school I worked in, I wasn't responsible for any of my printing and, any of the sort of administrative things. I wasn't responsible for it. There was somebody to do it. I just send it to them and they do it for me. And so, it's a lot easier. Yeah. So burnout, you could argue, can decrease, but then in some private schools that are super competitive and prestigious, they have a reputation to uphold, so there can be burnout there as well.
And just as we finish off, I wanted to know if there's one thing you want parents to sort of take away from our discussion, like what would it be? What's that one thing you want, parents, and or even not parents, just anyone to really take on board in regards to our discussion? What would that be?
I would say do your due diligence when making a decision. If that decision is open to you, obviously, a lot of people can't afford it. Do due diligence, look at the school, really probe it. And again, think about those outcomes. What do you want for your kid? Think about the impact that it's going to have on your family as well going forward before you make that decision. And also, lastly, is if private school isn't on the cards, you're not doomed, which some people believe, oh my gosh, I can't do it. And no, you are absolutely not doomed. Your child can be the best they can be. Your child can maximise their potential. You as a parent, I think, play more of a role in your child's development than any institution. So solidify that. And as we're seeing, they can still get to, if you want them to, you don't have to, if you want them to go to Oxbridge, and they can still go to Oxbridge. It's definitely possible.
No, thank you. That has been so insightful. Not just for our audience, but even for me. Like, you've answered, a lot of questions and really given an insight into, not only the structure, but just in terms of how things work, especially within private school. And for those who have any questions or would want to sort of reach out in regards to like consultation services, like what would be the best place to do that?
We offer a free consultation for first timers.
Yeah.
So that's a 30-minute consultation. You can come with your questions, and you can email us at globalscholarsonline.com.
Okay.
We'll be absolutely happy to answer your questions.
Okay.
And so on and so forth. Yeah.
Great stuff. Thank you again for joining on this episode. So that has been the Too Cool for School podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on our social media platforms.